Committee of the Whole is called back to order. I'd like to thank the Speaker and the Vice Speaker and Senator Duenas for being here, and Senator Fisher. We're just waiting for a quorum to be established. Once established, the panel should be here shortly, and then we'll continue on. At this point, we'll continue on recess. The committee of the whole is called back to order. Colleagues, we have additional personnel that are participating in the panel. They're Mr. Bora from Land Management and Mr. Joey Cruz from Chamorro Trust. So there were issues addressed reference to Chamorro Trust and Department of Land Management. With that note, and they've been sworn in already. So we will, if I'm correct, I think they uploaded another map. Ed, did they upload that other map? Let's confirm that so we're in sync. And then we'll ask, yeah. If you can turn on your mic.
Mr. Chair, there has been already 2 maps already been uploaded. So is there a third map?
There's supposed to be a third map to identify what Land Management uploaded from, got that from Chamorro Land Trust.
And it's in the Google Drive?
Well, I hope they're going to put it in the Google Drive, but I know that the IT folks are supposed to upload it. And with that note, okay, Ed, we'll have that map shown on the screen now, and then we'll continue on with Senator Tello. If they can blow it, can they blow it up? If not, put it on the drive so we can all look at it on our computer. There you go. Okay. Senator Tello, like I mentioned, we have Department of Land Management Director here and the Acting Director of Chamorro Land Trust here also so they can comment about the law that governed what they had to take care of. With that note, Senator Tello.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I'd like to yield to Mr. Borja since he came here to kind of explain to us this map, what we're looking at, if that's okay.
I don't know whose map is it, who created it. Oh, part of the law, okay. I'm not sure what explanation you need. I mean, what is your question?
Well, the question is, according to the law, it says 5 acres, and up to 5 acres, and then it says no less than 2 acres. This map that there's another map.
Can we put? I assume you've read the law. Can we put up the law and we'll read it together?
Okay.
Which law are you referring to, Mr. Bora? Senator Tello?
33
The law that Senator Taitagui is referring to.
Public Law 33-204 that created this.
Okay, at this time then, let me ask the clerk to have that law produced. Then we'll pass it out. Then everybody will have a copy because we all know how to read, so we don't need anybody to read it to us. We can take a few minutes to read it, and then we can move on to that. With that, we're on recess at this time. Committee holds call back to order. Colleagues, you have a copy of the Bill 33204, which is in your drive. At this point, you wanted to ask a question, but I want to remind everyone, my colleagues, okay? The Bill 264 is specifically for constructing the Natan Manayta Shrine. And there's questions being brought up about the land. So we'll stick to that. Until that point, if we start waive off, if there's an issue with the law, 33204, that's separate from this bill, the NAFTA, okay? It's not mixed apples and oranges. If you have questions on that bill, you can introduce a bill to amend it, and then you can move on that one. Okay? And if that, Senator Tello, you have 2 minutes, 50 seconds left.
Thank you. Mr. Borja, do you remember the presentation you gave the legislature on October 19, 2023?
I might have. That's quite a long time ago.
Well, you showed us some maps during that hearing, and we actually put one up. So can we get the AV to put up that one map, the second one? Not this one and the other one. The other one. Yes, this is the one. This is a map that you presented to the legislature on that day last year. And then now we have another map. Go ahead to the one that you put up prior, the first map. The other one. And this was a map presented to us by the panel this morning. I know it's got, if they can zoom in that area, it's quite, actually it's a lot more. Now it goes all the way to the end, the very end. So which map are we supposed to be referring to, Mr. Borja, under your...
Okay, I don't... can you bring it up and let's see the title block on the bottom right?
Are you talking about the lot 5173-1-R2
No,
new?
just who made the map, unsigned map and...
There's a copy, Mr. Wampat Borja. Can you give Mr. Borja the copy of that map?
This was submitted by Patrick.
Oh, thank you.
I just took the copy.
Mr. Chair, on a point of information, Mr. Chair.
Yes, please state your point of information.
I have a point of information, Mr. Chair, because as we're looking at maps going around, we see that the public law in the 33rd Guam Legislature shows Bill 374-33 has a bunch of maps and as Exhibit B. So is this the same area that we're looking at, which is lot number 5173-1-R2-new-R6 Oka Tumuning? Is that the right map we're looking at right now? Because if we're looking based on the public law, this was that was signed. The Exhibit B was attached to the public law. That's the map that we should be looking at, sir. So maybe, Mr. Chair, that one...
I think what we need to do then, if you're referring to that, then we need to go back to what's on the drive. You'll
Right.
find on the drive that the drive identifies DLM presentation oversight hearing. And yeah, I know.
I have a copy of this map that was put in by Mr. Lujan. It's all unsigned, so I'm assuming that this is a draft because they're unsigned, unapproved. If this is what he presented this morning.
So, Mr. Chair, on a point of information, does the map that's provided in Public Law 33-204 is the map that we should be looking at?
I think so, and that'll be the map coming down that.
Thank you.
that
Okay,
the,
if we
I
can
wanna
get
make
the
sure.
AV folks to, if they can put it on the screen, based on Public Law 33-204. Can you check if they have it? And then we can work with that, and I think that will clear the law.
Not a problem, yeah.
Okay, Ed, tell us how much time we need.
Okay. Since you have a copy in front of you, Mr. Borja, I don't want to belabor this. The map that we're looking based on public law, this public law. Okay. Yeah. The location where the monument itself is going to be located, where in this area, because we know that line down there, that one, straight line going down.
It will be to the right of that line.
Okay, so everything in that property will be to the right of the line, right?
Right.
Okay, and can you tell me, it's kind of hard to look at it, maybe the other maps are better to see. If that's the case, where was the old hospital located on that map?
It's kind of hard to tell, but you can see the outline of the parking lot there. That white line that almost looked like a hook. And then you see that, kind of hard to see on the screen there, but coming into the property where the circle is, the traffic circle, the Bishop Flores Memorial, if you look at the paper, you will notice that there's kind of like a hook. That was the part of the entrance to the parking lot. So the old hospital would be, the old hospital would be to the left of that line, immediately to the left of that line, yes.
Is it located immediately to the left of the line, so it's not adjacent to the line?
It's kind of hard to tell. That's why it's always better to do a survey and an overlay. But it would be to the left of that line. How much of it is to the left of that line, I can't say.
It requires
On that sketch, it requires a survey, correct. And an overlay, not just a survey, but an overlay.
So the map that you have from Mr. Lujan, that's not been signed, it's a draft that we already put into the record, committee report.
I wouldn't do that because it's unsigned, unapproved map. It's a draft. I mean, you can look at it.
Mr. Lujan, where's the intention of where you plan on placing the shrine?
Unfortunately, Senator Tideway, Mr. Lawrence not able to make it back, but Mr. Weinberg will answer that
Oh, I'm
question.
sorry, I couldn't see because I have Senator Parkinson. Sorry, I thought he was right behind Senator Parkinson. There you go. Thank you, sir.
Now,
We have the map coming down and an overlay on it, so, it should be here in a few minutes.
Okay,
It's-
then I'd like to wait for that, Mr. Chair. It's
Sure,
obvious
I
that all my
think-
questions are going to be pertaining to where do they plan on putting this shrine? Is it going to be smack in the middle of this property in Oka Point? Is it going to be where the old hospital is at? Who gave the authority to place this
Yes.
shrine in a particular location within the law where it says within 5 acres up to? So I think that's what everybody wants to know. Yeah. He said it's on its way?
Okay,
It's
so
on its way.
then we'll just take another
Sure.
recess.
Thank you.
And wait for the map. We all be patient. I think we've been patient for 2 weeks. We can afford a couple more days. And with that, we're on recess at this time till the information comes. Committee all is called back to order. Senator Tello?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can we get the first map, the very first map, on the screen? Because even though they said it wasn't signed, technically we have the same exact map sitting in front of Mr. Borja that is signed.
Can I go ahead and read?
Stand by.
Mr.
Stand by first, now put the map. Which map, Senator Tello? That one?
That's the map. That's the same exact map that has them. Can you go in closer? Yeah,
Can you zoom that in?
yeah, thank you. A little bit further down, bring it down. Okay. Okay, Mr. Borja. You wanted to read something?
I wouldn't comment on that map, but I would read something in the law that says, on page 2, line 19, it is the intent of Legislature in Guam to reserve a portion of up to 5 acres, but not less than 2 acres, comma, to include the coral outcropping known as the rock. The rock actually has a GGN marker, a Guam Geodetic Network marker. I believe it's number 3. And an appropriate buffer zone of land at Ipaw Point for the development of Parks and Recreation, Department of Parks and Recreation, to establish the Chamorro Shrine in order to pay homage to our ancestors and provide them a final resting place. The Chamorro Shrine would be pre-1989 disinterred ancestral remains. And then Section 2 says reservation of land for a Chamorro National Shrine. Notwithstanding any other provision of law, rule, or regulation, up to 5 acres, but not less than 2 acres, comma, including any geodetic triangulation survey, monuments, and an appropriate buffer zone of lot 5173-1-R2-new-R6 in the municipality of Tamuning, as shown on map number 076, FY 2013, and attached as Exhibit B, shall be reserved for use as a Chamorro Shrine, to be called Naftan Manaynata, and for the reinterment of all ancestral remains disinterred prior to September 25, 1989. The Naftan Manaynata Shrine shall be contiguous to lot number 5173-1-R2-new-4 in the municipality of Tamuning, parentheses, the Sagan Kuturan Chamorro lot. A digital aerial view of the area is also attached as Exhibit C. The Chamorro Land Trust is further prohibited from commercially leasing this portion. Access and utility easements to the reserved portion shall be provided. When reading this, the shrine is not the lot. The shrine is the facility itself, the building, the parking lot, and like that. The reason why they wanted to connect the lot to the Sagan Kuturan Chamorro is that when people come to visit the Sagan Kuturan Chamorro, they would have to access that to get to the shrine. Maybe provide some business to the group that's up there now. But it doesn't necessarily mean that the building itself shall be next to the Chamorro, Sagan Kuturan Chamorro on that. If you were to forget the following sentences there and says, reserve a portion of up to 5 acres, but not less than 2, period, you would and to make it connect to the GGN marker and to make it contiguous to the Chamorro land, the Sagan Kuturan Chamorro, you're going to have a long, narrow lot to keep within those 2 acres and 5 acres, which would not meet the survey requirements. The only lot up there that I feel was increased in area was the Sagan Kuturan Chamorro. It said something, the original law said something like 8 or 9 acres, I believe. When land management surveyed that, they found that one of the property lines on the northern part cut across an existing building there. So instead of reducing the acreage in there, land management decided to move that property line probably, 50 feet to include that last building. Otherwise, that last building would have to be like that. And that was years ago when they did that. That's the only lot that I think was increased maybe beyond the law, but for surveying purposes, you can't have a property line running across a building, and the building is on one side, on one lot, and the other side of the building is on that side. And the reason why this was put in is because to give the surveyor discretion as to where to build that, to where to cut out that lot. The surveyor, without that following sentence there after the comma, he could have put the Naftan Manaynata right smack in the middle of the old hospital. He could have put it there, and he would have been following the law. But to give the surveyor discretion as to where to locate it, you don't, it's like you have a 1 acre lot, and if you're going to build a house, don't build it in the middle of the lot, because that's going to prevent you from subdividing the lot further. And if you're going to build a house there and you're going to mortgage the property, you're going to mortgage the whole lot. Whereas if you build your house to the side, you still have that remaining portion, especially if it's a parental subdivision, you still have the option of using that other part of the lot. So that's why planning purposes, in the old days, I guess most people, they like their house in the middle of the lot and have a nice big yard. But later on, when they want to build another house in there, and you have to subdivide the property, you're going to run into problems.
Thank you, Mr. Borja. And, I'm sure everybody wants to see this shrine be built and done in a way that there's a win-win for everybody. The possibility of having a new hospital to be built in that same area, and also have the shrine in that area as well. I think there is a win-win. If you can put up that one map I showed you, AV, put up that one map. When you talked about putting things smack in the middle, you'll see here the shrine that's pointed, the Naftan is right there in the middle of this property. And then you'll see where the parking lot is located. And then you have this massive amount of property to the right of it. And that is next to the Sagan Kantura. That's right next to it, where the borderline. So I'm just wondering, why would you put the shrine right there so close to the old hospital that used to be, and then you're leaving this whole big area? It doesn't look like a long, skinny 2-acre, property. It looks like a really nice big lot, square lot at the bottom of the page.
Actually, Senator, the location of the physical building was determined by the architect and the engineer putting it together. It wasn't land management that said build that there. When we surveyed this lot or did that sketch, the architect actually came back and said, this is a place of serenity.
Right. And it was done in 2016.
Let me finish, Senator. And at that time, there was no bill or law to allow the building of a hospital there.
Right.
The law on the books says lease this out commercially. The architect says, hey, you don't want your Naftan Manaynata next to Chinatown. You have to give it some setback just to protect the serenity of the facility. If you follow that, whatever the Chamorro Land Trust decides to do, whether to build a 7-star hotel or a Chinatown or whatever, it's going to be right smack next to that facility.
Okay, so like I said,
we don't want
can be moved. No, we don't want that. Yeah. That's true, Joe. But there's
the actual
nothing
site
stopping.
Selection was made by the architect.
In 2016, when Andrew Laguanya built or designed the facility, we all know that he was trying to utilize the view from where it's at.
Of course.
But now we have a situation where we may have to use this property to build a new hospital. So if you were to move the shrine a little bit further down, because we know that it was downsized. The original one was was much larger, and then they downsized it according to Patrick. And he said that it's only 2 acres that it's utilized, that needs to be utilized for this shrine now. So why can't you move it further down? You still have the view, because if you see where it says car and bus parking, where the arrow is, where if you look where car and bus parking, that's where the Hilton is. That's a view.
The where? The Hilton's not on that lot.
No,
Senator.
it's not. It's right where, if you were to put the map on the aerial map, you'll see that where it says car and bus parking is where the Hilton is at. So you can oversee it from there. And there's...
And again, Senator, that is
So,
a sketch. That is not an approved map.
Okay, so anyways, my time is up. I'm going to yield it. So
Thank you.
we have 2 rounds, so thank you.
Senator Fisher, you have any questions? None. Senator Roy Canata, do you have anything? None. We'll proceed on up to the very top now. Senator Blas, do you have any questions?
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Chair. And I thank you for the panel for being here. Mr. Wampat, I appreciate this morning the effort that you're going to be working right at the hip with Parks and Recreation. The fact of the matter is, the concern that I have here is this is a $5 million appropriation to the Department of Parks and Recreation. And rightfully so, if you will, because we're talking about a park. I'm not comfortable, though, that you can speak or with authority on the commitment that I would appreciate and would rather get from the Director of Parks and Recreation. No offense, please, to you. I know, Mel, if you were the Director of Parks and Rec, I got no problem. If this was going to your your agency, I've got no problem with that either. Okay, it's just that, you know, this body's given $10 million to this administration to fix an emergency room. Where's that? Gave $35 million to be able to, a year, to be able to fix the Department of Corrections. Where's that? We've given millions of dollars more to be able to fix certain things, other things. But things happen. And so when I see a bill that basically provides $5 million, well, you know, one of the questions I will have is the breakdown of the $5 million. I fail to see the math in that. The project is reduced in size but ballooned in price. And I just needed to see the correlation of how that happens. Or a timeline. You know, well, the bill provides that the monies will be there until expended, but when will we start? And I guess, I don't know whether, again, as you know, the Director of the Department of Chamorro Affairs, this is going to the Department of Parks and Recreation. What is the timeline? Okay, and I don't expect you to answer because you can't, because you're not Parks and Recreation. So, saying you know, where it's going to be built and how it's going to elongate and everything, I just want to know, if we give you $5 million today, how long is it going to stay in the bank? And when are we going to move on it? Maybe you can answer this too. Has anything started? If this was to be signed tomorrow and the $5 million is released, is there any, what are the plans after that?
Thank you, Senator. I mean, I agree that it's troubling to know that we've had this in the books for quite some time, and we're still not quite there yet. But I do think that what's, I guess one of the silver lining here is that we do have an A&E complete. As far as I know, SHPO, there was monies appropriated by the legislature. I think it was $100,000 for an A&E, and it ended up being a little bit more, but somehow SHPO was able to identify the funds and sort it out. And so we're definitely farther along than I think we have been. And you're right, I can't speak to a timeline, but considering that we do have an A&E done, it means that we're a lot closer to starting the project and completing. Whereas if we didn't have that done yet, there's still a significant amount of time that needs to pass before we can actually start bidding it out. Okay. I understand too that there is concern about I guess who's going to be the lead agency in the project. My perspective is that you're right, it is appropriate for DPR since it will inevitably be a public park, even though it's not a traditional, not like a EPA beach park, but nonetheless, it is meant to be a public space. And because DCA has legal jurisdiction and legal authority over the human remains, there's really no way to separate DCA from the effort. For me personally, I think that the challenge for DCA, let's just say that DCA was to receive the funding for the project. DCA is not, we're not, built for these type, we partner and contract out, right? So I think that's, it's always going to be a challenge, I think administratively, but I definitely feel like we're farther ahead of where we were previously.
Okay, you said that you completed an A&E.
Yeah, my understanding is that SHPO completed the A&E for the NAF-10 build.
So do we have basically any documents that show that the A&E is completed and where we anticipate or where we would like this?
Yes, I believe so. SHPO was the lead agency on the A&E.
I'd be very interested to see where if they say A&E, where exactly do we intend to put this monument and all the other whistles? Because we go from no less than 2, at least 5, and then I heard 12 acres. You need a buffer zone and many other bells and whistles, and I'm okay. And then we have this law in Baston 33rd. How does this all mesh together?
I think that I think that the big question at hand right now is the funding and the funding source for the construction of the facility itself. That said, I mean the consideration of the land that's set aside for this project is already designated in this law passed by the 33rd. I think that if there's going to be a question on the land consideration, it needs to be addressed at this level.
And take no offense, Mel, but again, I've got a bill in front of me that's asking $5 million to be able to build something.
Right.
But I don't see any plans for it. And I don't see timelines. I don't see any of this stuff. Okay? Again, I've been part of this legislature that has provided administrations, monies to be able to repair things, build things, and it never happens.
Right.
To this day, we're still asking what happened to this money. I need the assurance because, first time, shame on you. Second time, shame on me. Third time, Mr. Chair, I was going to ask, do I have a mirror? Because then I want to see if on my face, do I have Maduro, on my forehead. Okay? So I got to be very careful of that. Again, I don't blame you. Again, Melvin, you represent DCA. This says Parks and Rec. I need the assurances for Parks and Rec. Okay? And I need to see the plans. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Blows. Senator Duenas.
Mr. Chairman. I think I want to start by maybe trying to recap and go with what I know in terms of how we started this hearing today and the process. We know we need a funding source. We know, as represented by the SHPO, that it's pretty clear that all of us can understand that have been involved in construction. The estimate of $2 million from the beginning easily will be upwards of $4 million plus, given the current climate in terms of construction. We also know that this land was set aside to begin with in terms of legislation that Mr. Borja just read to us, and a map now that has been produced as a recordation. So I'm going to see if the other two things fall in line with what we should know, because I think I derived a little bit from what Mr. Borja was saying here earlier, and also Mr. Wampat Borja. And so let me see if I can take it to the next 2 points to see how I come to a conclusion. Mr. Joe Borja, you mentioned that, were you part of the A&E, or at least approval of the A&E as it went through the process?
No, Senator, our lane was the surveying of the property.
Okay, so
The only A&E part that we had was when the architect wanted to meet to determine the buffer zone.
okay. In the A&E, as you met with the architect, did the A&E fall within the property identified in the original legislation?
Yes.
Did the can you do an A&E if you don't identify a location?
No. I would, I'm not an engineer, but I wouldn't think so. Not only in terms of size of the property, but also in terms of suitable property. For example, the property in this map, although it says 58,335 square meters, I'd venture to say that maybe 40 to 50% of that property is actually cliffline. Okay. So is there 14 acres in that property according to the map? Yes, but also a topographical survey, the topographical information shows that 40 at least, maybe 50% of the property is actually cliffline.
Okay, I think we might be getting there. So,
Point of information, Mr. Speaker, where is that map? The topo. Is it the same map?
It's the same map we're looking at. If you follow the line, you'll see that those are cliff line on the right side of the map.
The map that was on the screen, that doesn't show topo line. This one does.
If we can get the map back on. Okay, the other one, let's go to the different maps and we'll see which one it is. Okay, if you expand that a little bit more. Blow up the map. Blow it some more. I think, Mr. Borja, you need to explain that when you're looking at this map and you see all that yellow and all that stuff, we're looking at cliff lines.
The bright orange ones, those are topo lines, the squiggly lines. And beyond that green area and then up to the orange area and then to the right of that area, that's cliff line. That's cliff line.
May I continue, Mr. Chair? So, Mr. Borja, Joe Borja, I want to be clear once again, because we're really excited this morning, all of us who are talking about this bill, on how the late Mr. Laguardia made this beautiful plan. It was his last project, and this is the footprint that he identified, the A&E, in the lot that was approved by law, correct?
Correct. If at that point in time, the architect and the engineer could have come back and put it right around the circle, but he actually wanted to use land that had a vista, a site, And if you look at Tumon, this is the perfect spot really for a cultural event. If you look at Tumon, what's on the other end of Tumon? What's on the northern point of Tumon Bay? Two Lovers Point. So by building the Naftan Manaynata here, you kind of encapsulate Ipaw Point, you know, as the cultural center. You got the Ipaw Beach Park in the middle. You've got Two Lovers Point up to the north, which is the northern boundary of the of Ipaw, so to speak. And then you have the cultural Naftan Manaynata to the south. So it kind of cradles the area.
Is a certain portion of consideration in the buffer zone cliffline property that is typically not buildable?
Yes, but you know, your buffer would be against what? Your buffer is usually something that you don't want too close to your event. So you could designate the buffer zone on the cliffland property, but what are you buffering against? You know, the Hilton is down low, so you're not really doing that, you know. And then if you do that and you put the facility, the building itself, the parking lot and the Naftan, you would be up to that line. And the property here that's left over to the right, that's commercial property. In commercial property, you're allowed to build zero setback. Zero setback. So anybody that would have a commercial lease from the Chamorro Land Trust could theoretically build up to the property line.
Okay. So I'm going to go back to Mr. Melvin Wampetbora, because I have to do my two-factor identification here just to make sure to get to my final point, because I think you said it in your testimony earlier, and you're right. We may have to be the ones that are grappling over what the identification of the buffer is. So to confirm, with your work with the A&E and everything else, and also with your knowledge of what Pat has been executing, the identification of the A&E, which requires you to have a certain piece of property to do A&E for elevation purposes and everything else, has not moved.
I'm sorry, Senator, can you clarify, has not moved?
Yes. So in other words, meaning as identified in the law that first got us moving on this project, the 5 acres, the 2, no less than 2, and the 5 acres, that other than what's being recorded in this map now, which is separate from you and what Pat are doing in terms of the buffer zone, that's their role, your role. But the A&E that you and Pat participated in was within the original footprint of property identified in the law.
Oh, yes, that's correct, Senator. I'm sorry, I just didn't understand what you're asking. But just to clarify, DCA was not a part of the effort for the A&E. It was led by SHPO. I'm just relaying how I've been briefed by SHPO. My understanding is that Mr. Bora is correct that the A&E, the location of the actual shrine within the property border was determined by the architect who did the A&E.
Okay.
Or engineer.
So then, of course, Mr. Boras confirmed that. So, Mr. Chair, where I am with this is, and we'll have to get back with Pat, because I think that's where the rubber meets the road here. Where I'm at with this in terms of the testimony on the record by both gentlemen here and the earlier testimony by our SHPO, Pat Lujan, is that the dispute seems to have come in now in terms of buffer zone recordation outside of the 2 plus 5 acres. Now land management has their position, I believe, and Ancestral Lands has that position based on how they read the law. But the corpus of what we're trying to do here in terms of identifying the funding for this purpose and the A&E, which cannot move unless you do a new A&E, because an A&E is done by identification of longitude, latitude, an area of land that doesn't move. So my feeling, Mr. Chair, as we dispute this or debate this going forward is, I want to be clear on the record that the location didn't move and the original lot didn't move. Everybody that's been so excited and so happy about the late Mr. LaGuarnia's plan, I hope remains as excited and anticipatory about that, because that hasn't moved. That cannot move, because I cannot ask you, Mr. Chair, to get me an architect to do an A&E for building on my lot, and you're going to do an A&E for a house that can be put anywhere. It has to have point certain in order to be able to do it. You cannot, now if you have a building design that you can speculate on, but not an A&E, because an A&E has to identify this computer is going to go right in the middle of this desk. There's going to be a foot on this side, a foot on this side, and a foot in the front, a foot in the back, and that's where it's going to be. So with that portion, I remain supportive of. With the appropriation portion, I remain supportive of. I guess in the end, our dispute would be, or a debate or conversation would be with land management and others on how they arrived at the buffer zone. But we are not doing anything different than what was called for with regard to identify a funding source and realizing the dream of the location that was identified through the law. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Duenas. Senator Parks, do you have any questions with the panel? None. Senator Barnett, do you have any questions with the panel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend this morning, so I don't know if we've gone over this, but maybe for Mr. Borja, if he can just explain, so the public law that we were looking at here, sorry. It says up to 5 acres, right? No less than 2. And then there's the language of appropriate buffer. So I'm just confused. Just in all the hearings that we had on this and the hospital, I mean, this is just my version of it. It seems like we get a map of one hearing, then the next hearing, it'd be a different map with certain portions of property, smaller, others bigger. So. And now we're seeing a new map here dated 2024. So I guess, Mr. Borja, the new map, is that going to be the one you have there that's all signed off on? Is that the official map to move forward with the shrine?
Yes, it is, Senator. Yes, it is.
Can you just explain how much it differs from the up to 5, not less than 2, and then what the appropriate buffer is, like in terms of acreage, Mr. Borja?
In terms of acreage, the actual facility, the building, the parking lot, and at one time restrooms considered, is 5 acres. And then this map that identifies the area, the buffer zone, the contiguous factor, and the rock, it's 58,335 square meters. I'm not sure what that breaks down. I believe it may be 14 acres. And again, within that 14 acres, probably at least 40% of that is cliff line going down.
So you're talking about the entire parcel for the shrine, inclusive of the appropriate buffer. Well, can you just tell me, do you believe that the map fits the definition of appropriate buffer, and what is the buffer zone?
The buffer zone, according to the architect that he wanted, was at least 20 feet setback. Again, keeping in mind that the leftover property is actually commercial, and whoever leases it out could build to the property line, 0 setback. So the architect at that time did not want to take that chance that you locate the shrine close to the middle. Number one, it would not make the big portion left over, the R8, it would not make it usable, but it would allow any commercial lessee to build 0 setback right up to the property line.
So,
not the shrine, but the whatever commercial.
Right. But you're saying the architect wanted 20 feet, and I get the commercial, there's no setback, but correct me if I'm wrong, did you say that the buffer zone was 14 acres with 40 to 50% of that being cliffline?
No, the entire lot is 14 acres.
Okay, so the entire lot's 14 acres. The law calls for up to 5 acres for the facility, and that's the facility.
That's the buffer zone there.
So then the balance outside of the 5, is that the buffer zone then?
That would be in the.
No, I know, the law says 5
architectural
acres, so
zone.
that's what I'm saying. It looks like just, I mean, outside of the appropriate buffer, the 5 acres is what the law allows. And everything else here, it seems like, is Department of Land Management or whoever's interpretation of appropriate buffer, right? Because there's no number in this public law that says you put 7 acres all around everything and
Yeah,
the hokey pokey, right?
Appropriate would have been the definition of the architect and the engineer. 20 feet a buffer zone, that's usually the width of an easement.
Right. So what is the actual buffer zone then? If it's not 20 feet, how much more than 20 feet is the proposed buffer zone according to the latest map that you have there?
That should show on the architect's drawing, the site plan.
And we don't have that.
I don't have that.
Online?
Madam Vice, you have a point of information so we
Point
can.
of information is noted even by the SHPO this morning that it has been on their website for many years now. It's
Oh,
online.
the A&E.
They're on
They're
their
online.
address online.
Could we get a copy passed out to the members?
Mr. Chair, based on modern technology and them presenting to us this morning, and as I noted in my report that they have had this plan as engineered by the good late Andrew Laguarnia. They've had this site up in their address. Hold on, give me a second.
Can we get a copy of that? I mean, so that everybody can share it, because I'm looking for it also. Mel, or Mr. Wampa, do you have a copy of that? The A&E? Okay. Is there any way you can access it and then?
So how big is the drawing from the late Mr. Laguarnia?
Let's find out.
Okay.
They're going to pull it up on the web. Let's take a recess and let's
Thank you, Mr.
get
Chair.
that information, and everybody can stop trying to answer something that they don't have. Thank you.
It's on their website.
Recess at this time, and then we'll pull it up, okay?
It's been on their website for a long time.
Madam Vice, Madam Speaker, I'm not questioning what you guys have to say. We're on recess, as Senator Barnett asked, to see it. So we'll wait for that information. Thank you.
Like I was saying earlier, that having been to a lot of these hearings on my bill 185, which I'd just like to note for the record, would mandate the construction of a new hospital in deference to the Naftan shrine. But again, in going through these hearings, it's unfortunate because I kind of got this feeling that the footprint of the shrine kept growing in an effort to make the surrounding land smaller to make the proposition of building a new hospital at Oka Point less feasible, I guess, in the administration's eyes. So my question, Mr. Bora, and I've been having a hard time trying to get an answer to it. I get that you're saying the land surrounding the shrine, the appropriate buffer zone is 40 to 50% cliff line, but that just seems a little willy-nilly for me. And I guess my question is, so if the architect, and I'm going to use a visual aid here, if the architect drafted the A&E and it's 5 acres according to the law, my question is, how much buffer zone is going around this? Because the maps that you're showing us, it kind of looks like a land grab where we have the Naftan shrine, which would be in the white, and then the surrounding appropriate buffer zone, which could be, I guess, the yellow. So my question again is, what is the total acreage of the property surrounding where the shrine should actually be? Does this aid help a little more, Mr. Bora?
I'm sorry, Senator, what was your question again? What is the total acreage of
Yes.
Of the property?
So we have the shrine, which we all agree is 5 acres, right? That's this.
The facility.
And then we're slapping it in here. So how much is this on your new maps?
We didn't factor that in, Senator, in terms of finding
So
out the acreage.
you have
of-
no idea how much acreage is you guys are trying to add to the appropriate buffer zone?
No, the acreage was actually determined even before.
Just how much is it, Mr. Bora? That's a simple question. Here's the A&E design, which is 5 acres according to what you said earlier.
Okay.
And I'm putting it on what I guess you're determining to be the appropriate buffer. So your appropriate buffer outside of the 5 acres, how many additional acres is it?
Well,
Because the long lease says up to 5.
it will be 58,335
What is that,
square
Mr.
meters
Bora?
minus.
Could we get in acres? Are we talking 9 acres additional?
It was identified earlier, 58,000 is 14 acres. And
So
it also mentioned earlier, Senator Burnett, that 40% of that is cliff line. So you
Where is
minus
that?
40, that's almost
I see the topo map, but I mean, is that an estimation, Mr. Bora, or is it?
No, we didn't survey the land around the property, around the facility itself. So if the facility itself is 5 acres, then you would subtract that from the 58,335 square meters, which breaks down to, let me do a calculation here.
Can I ask, why are you giving us some in acres and some in square meters? Can we just get it all in acres? Just for the, the
Well,
people
I
watching.
haven't seen the layout. What's the layout? And is it acres or square meters? You say it's 5 acres, but the site plan, I don't know what the acreage or the square meters on that.
So,
And I know it's kind of hard to understand, like buildings are square feet, and
I mean,
land
I
is
also
square
just feel like
meters.
you're muddying the water. You're making it hard to understand. So, how many additional acres outside of the 5 Naftan are you guys taking for the buffer zone? So if the numbers we're throwing around is 14 and the shrine itself is 5, then that means you're taking an additional 9 acres for an appropriate buffer zone, sir?
Yeah, give me a time to calculate it, Senator. I'm not a surveyor, but I'll figure it out in math. 9.41 acres surrounding. Yeah, and then if you cut down the cliff line, I don't know that we have the calculation for the acreage of the cliff line, and I don't know that we have the calculation of the rock, the GGN marker, and I don't know if we have the calculation of the portion that attaches to the second Couture and Chamorro.
Thank you, Mr. Borra. So I guess in my layman's math, it's 5 acres, and then there's an additional 9.5 acres that's being taken and added under your interpretation or whoever's interpretation of appropriate buffer?
I wouldn't say that it was taken. It's allowed for under the law, but the exact acreage.
It just seems like a bit of a
identified
stretch.
in the
Yeah,
law, yeah.
okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's obvious that with that
And
much.
if it was taken, Senator, it was
No,
for the
I'm-
serenity of the NAFTAN, not
all-
taken
all-
and
yes,
given
yeah.
to land management.
No, I
and
mean,
all
the
that.
law laid all that out for the serenity of the NAFTA, but I just don't know where we're getting the authority to add 9.5 additional acres as an appropriate buffer.
I wouldn't say that it's an addition.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Chair.
if it was an addition, it's an addition to the NAFTAN Manaynata, not for an addition for commercial use.
Thank you, Senator Brennan. Madam Speaker, do you have any questions for the panel? You trying to send something to audio? A map? Okay. Take a quick recess, waiting for a map to be sent by the speaker, and we'll see what happens. Is that the map up there, Madam Speaker? That's not the map? Is it something that was issued to everybody? We have a bunch of maps here.
I'm sorry, Madam Speaker, what was that?
Tell
Go
me-
ahead and use the microphone. You know, if it- yeah.
Madam Speaker, do you have a map with you that we're looking for? Is that the one you're talking about right now? Take a look. That's the map. Okay, we all got a copy of that map. Right? Or no? So we can get that printed? Quinn? I don't know where that came from. I've never seen that one. I'm looking at all the maps.
On a point of information, Mr. Chair, please.
Yes.
The map that we're looking and discussing, is it a part of the law with Public Law 33-304? Or
Just point of
204?
information, Mr. Chair, obviously there are new maps, new property lines for this Naftan Shrine, so I don't know why we're even bothering to look at the map that's included in the original public law.
Well, you know, Senator Barnett and Madam Vice Speaker, I don't even know why we're looking at maps when we're talking about funding a shrine. We keep talking about the land. I'm concerned that the bill is about a shrine, but the map is all about the land. So, okay, Madam Speaker, do you have a map? You have a map now? You want to talk about it? Okay, let's continue on with your question, please. Clock is now ticking.
So, thank you all for being here. Again, this bill is to fund $5 million for the construction of the NAFTA. And we're in committee of the whole. So my question is, first of all, Mr. Borja, do you know how big the SKC is, the Sagan Couture and Chamorro property?
I believe it's 8 or 9 acres, I believe. It was increased in size because the original map, if you see the
Okay.
bottom of that orange section.
8 or 9 acres.
The original map cut right through a building.
Right, so
So-
8 or 9 acres. It includes 5 houses and yards on the cliff front and the back,
I
right?
believe it
Both
may
sides.
include 8 houses, maybe.
8, not
Yeah.
5. Okay, thank you. And Mel, Director, can you tell me what has been done since Andy LaGuardia made the design. And what would you call his work? This is the design. Is it an architect and engineering documents? Do we have those?
The A&E was led by SHPO. My understanding is that...
Where is the SHPO, Mr. Chair?
I'm not sure.
I'm not too sure. He was supposed to be here. I mean, we've been trying to reach out for him.
Because the bill
Yes.
aims to give $5 million to the SHPO. I'd like him to be here if that's
Yes.
possible.
Yeah, I've been trying to get hold of him. And so has Mr. Juan Perez.
So my understanding is that, I know SHPO led the A&E. It was, the money for the A&E was appropriated in 2002, I think. But the A&E was conducted by SHPO, and that's how we came to the layout that you have on your diagram.
It's a design, yes, and I think I'm the one that made that appropriation. So they made it this design. They put it up for public comment. We even had an oversight hearing on it, I'm pretty sure. And as to the design, it was all good. We're all in consensus, in agreement. We want to move forward with this beautiful design by Andy Laguatnia. We want to put it on the spot that he has determined for us to be a beautiful, appropriate spot for it on 5 acres of land that previous legislature authorized. 5 acres. The law that authorized the 5 acres says up to 5 acres, but not less than 2 acres, comma, including any geodetic triangulation survey monuments and an appropriate buffer zone. That's what it says. It does not say 5 acres and more. It says up to 5 acres maximum, including the geodetic triangulation survey, monuments, and the appropriate buffer zone. And I remember the hearings, and I remember Mr. Laguatnia, and in his design was very concerned about what would be in front or in back of this, and he designed it so that there were appropriate barriers. I think they include plants and, other forms that are actually built as barriers to protect this beautiful area from anything else that might be on the other side. And let's not forget that the Chamorro Land Trust controls what's on the other side. So if they were going to enter into a lease, I'm pretty sure they're smart enough to say what they're going, if they can build up to the 1 inch of this shrine or not. I think it's ridiculous to say, oh, but they might have some casino there up to the shrine. Who's going to do that? But I'm just trying to calm down because I'm a little upset. Is that my time? 1 minute? 1 week before we came in to deliberate on this bill to give them $5 million, we know that nothing has been done in the interim. There is no further planning. But 1 week before we come in here, I just found out today that the Chamorro Land Trust, the SHPO, all signed off on a map giving 14 acres of Chamorro Land Trust property away. As some concocted buffer zone that could have been taken care of with 5 acres. The entire SKC is on 8 to 9 acres. Do you know, Director Juan Pat Borja, how big the actual monument is? That's going to go,
Sorry,
we're supposed to go into the 5 acres, the building?
You're asking me, do I know the exact size of the
Yeah,
monument?
the size.
No, I don't have that figure right in front of me.
I wanted to ask the Chamorro Land Trust acting director. So we have an acting director today who I love, but I was just so shocked to find out signed off on a map to give away 14 acres, not 5, but 14 acres of Chamorro Land Trust property. While we are in the middle of bill after bill trying to remedy errors of the past, signing off on things without commission approval, AG opinions, does 5 acres mean 14 acres, or does it mean 5 acres? I haven't seen any AG opinion. I asked both Director Borja from Land Management. I asked CLTC if anybody has any kind of opinion that says this language means 14 acres when it says to me up to 5 acres.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Your time is up.
My time is up. I have so many more questions, Mr. Chair.
You do it on the second round if there's a need for a second round. Colleagues, we have ended the first round. Do we have a need for a second round? Or you were absent and we passed you? I beg your pardon? No. Senator Tello, we started with Tina and I went this way. Senator Brown wasn't here and I went to you next. Okay? We're going to do the second round and I can begin with Senator Brown if she wants to. Okay? I'm just trying to follow the flow now. We're not going to fault anybody for not, even though the senator's not here. But do you have any questions for a second round? And we're going to begin with you and then Senator Brown. None?
Sir, if I may, I will yield to the closing since I'm the author of the...
Okay, save for closing. Senator Brown, do you have any questions for the panel? Please. Thank you.
Well, I don't know if it's confusion because, at one end, Mr. Chair, we're being asked to support the shrine, which I think you're not going to get an argument of, but I am curious how we appropriated 9 additional acres to this project. And to me, it's all relevant because we're being asked now to put up $5 million of the people's money to fund this facility, and somehow we got an additional 9 acres taken that was never authorized. So that I have a problem with, which gives me misgivings as to whether or not we should appropriate $5 million until we get this issue squared away, because as you know, there's still not any final decision that has been made ultimately with what the use of this property is, this property that was called the gem of the Chamorro Land Trust. You know, we talk about all the issues about the lack of revenue for infrastructure. We were just here this session talking about all those issues and concerns. And so I'm curious if there's land that's been transferred over recently. I'd like to know how or why and how much, because if you're asking us to approve $5 million to build this and now we're taking a land grab of additional 9 acres, be it for the construction of a hospital or some other facility, that may be determined to be built up there. This is critical property, so I do want to know how it's going to be used. So if I can ask the Acting Director of Land Trust, the Speaker just made some comments, is that indeed the case? Has 14 acres been transferred from the Chamorro Land Trust for this shrine?
As of today, the only thing that I had signed was the map. I haven't signed any conveyance documents as of today.
Okay, so what does the map, which map and what is on the map? What does the map do? Mr. Borja, if you can answer that.
The map approves the parcel.
It approves the what?
Parcel, yeah. And you know, when we say give away, we're not giving it away for a raceway park, we're giving it away for a NAFTA.
Mr. Borja, I don't need commentary about the importance of burying our ancestors. I'm sorry, let's not get into the politics here. We just laid to rest ancestral remains in Pago Bay that and I'm one of the original founders of Safe Southern Guam, who was advocating all these years to get those remains interned. So I can respect the need to reintern our ancestors, but let's not play the politics, because we know the administration certainly doesn't want a hospital built there. But I want to make sure that we're also maximizing the use of critical land that can also be used for other critical purposes that are needed by this community. So what was done in this particular map? What did it parcel out?
It parceled out a site for the NAFTA Manay.
And how many acres are in that parcel?
14 acres.
And how, if I can ask, who had the authority to take out 14 acres?
By the law. It's stated on the map. Whenever land management does a survey of a property, it refers to the public law that authorizes them to do it.
And which authorized, if the original law that authorized the shrine said 5 acres, how did we get to 14?
If you read further in the public law, it allows for a buffer zone, and it allows and requires that the parcel include the rock, which is actually a survey monument, and it requires that the parcel be contiguous to the second Kuturan Chamorro.
And that was a justification on your legal interpretation for taking 14 acres
That
altogether.
is the interpretation of the surveyor, the licensed surveyor.
Well, you know, we're getting the interpretation of the architect and we're getting the interpretation of the surveyor and other I mean, they get to decide how much land is being taken out of here, which I would question. I would ask the speaker to have an oversight hearing when she can on this particular issue, because I think we just want to get things on the straight, not even on the narrow, but on the straight line with regards to the Chamorro Land Trust, because to me, this is a huge land taking. I mean, otherwise, why didn't the law originate? I was not here in this legislature, because I would have asked those questions then. Why didn't they say take 14 acres or 20 acres or 50 acres? They specified between 2 and no more than 5, and now that's multiplied into 14. And so now you're asking the legislature on behalf of the people of Guam to appropriate $5 million when we're looking at maps that we can't even determine to distinguish what's what, and we're just supposed to pay for it. And then really adversely, to a certain degree, adversely impacting other uses of this property. Which, let's not kid ourselves, this is probably the most valuable property in the Chamorro Land Trust inventory, be it to build a hospital or any other facility that may be desired up there. So I think we need to recognize that. I mean, I'm all for properly reinterring our ancestors. I fought for that myself in my own neighborhood, in my own front yard. So I don't argue the need for it, but let's not take this issue and politicize it and determine we're gonna take 14 acres and minimize. And if it is for a hospital in the future, because I'll tell you, the whole world can change in a few months, then, you know, if it's for the living that need health care, then that to me is also an important priority. I think we can do both, but to take 14 acres of prime property for what is otherwise between a 2 to 5 acre designation in my interpretation of this bill and just add on to it because it's what the architect thinks and it's what the surveyor thinks, to me is a major land taking on some very critical property, especially when the land trust is coming in here and telling us that we don't have money for infrastructure. We don't have money for this. We don't have money. And our poor people are out there and they're homeless or they're living in substandard living conditions. But for the land trust to do this, wow, I am just as disturbed as the speaker is with regards to this because, you know, why do we make these issues so shady? Something that should be clean and without question. And now you're asking us to put $5 million to build this when we are looking now going, wait a minute, this is a major taking of land that otherwise could be used for the land trust. And that to me is very disturbing. So that's my comment on round 2, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Brown. Senator Tadaway, do you have any questions?
Mr. Chair,
correction, excuse me, Senator Lujan. I just noticed, none. Senator
Mr.
Tadaway.
Chair, on a point of information,
Point of information.
maybe to have some clarification on the coral outcropping known as the rock. Maybe ask the point of information and an inquiry to the land management, what the rock, what does it mean? Is it a piece of property? Is it the big boulder that can't be removed because of
Whatever reasons.
for whatever reason, cultural, spiritual, and all that?
So for point of information, you want land management to answer what is the rock about?
Yeah.
If you
But
look
that-
at,
that's not a point of information. That's like asking a question and debating on the floor, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Chair,
It's asking
on
a
a point of
question.
information,
Stand by.
there seems to be a debate on that. The expert from land management, the director is here. So the interpretation of the word "the rock," may I ask that the good director please share a perspective on what the rock is? I was going to ask about the buffer zone, but I will wait to recess or when my turn is up, but the rock. So please, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Mr. Bora, if you can please explain what is the rock, and we can move along real quick.
if you ever go up to Ipaw Point and you look at Ipaw Point, you see this big mound there in the middle, not in the middle actually, over to the northeast corner of the lot. that big coral outcropping is the rock. On that rock is Guam Geodetic Network marker number 3, also commonly known as IPAO.
How big?
If you were to flatten that area, you could not bulldoze it from the cliffside going in. You would have to push the rock out towards the cliff, which would probably hit the chapel on the bottom there. So the rock is right on the edge of the property. And even building the old hospital, the Navy that built it, they did not touch that rock, although if you flatten it and push it down the cliff line, you could probably get another 3/4 acres or another acre of usable land. So the rock has a survey monument on it, number one, and number two, it's a coral outcropping. I don't know how you would flatten that to make that usable, so that's the rock, you know, that's the significance
All
of
right.
the rock.
Okay, thank you. Senator Daddy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Again, I think everyone realizes that the importance of putting up this shrine. There's no doubt about it. We all agree to it. The problem that we're having is that these decisions are being made almost disingenuously, not even having the correct map so that we can look at, not having SHPO here to tell us where exactly this monument is going to be, the shrine is going to be, not even knowing the size of the shrine. We don't even have that. I do know that according to SHPO, when he was here, when I asked him how many acres it's going to take to put this shrine, he said 2 acres. 2 acres. Mr. Borja, when you gave us this presentation to us back in October of 2023, there was a section here that talked about the sizes of different locations for the hospital. And one of them was Oka Point at 35 acres. When you have that 35 acres, are you incorporating as well the buffer zone in that area for this 35 acres that you incorporated? It had, you know, other place, Eagle Field at 102 acres, existing hospital at 16 acres. You know, that was that list of all the size acres for the hospital. Is this 35 including a buffer?
I think that 35-acre amount was put by Matrix, not by land management, Senator.
Do you concur to it?
35 acres?
Since you've been assessing that area?
No, I do not.
What do you think it
The bill
is?
determining the area and the size of the property was actually passed in a previous administration on the 33rd legislature back then. You know, not after we found out that there was an effort to build the hospital there, and we hurriedly
what is the
took
acreage
some land
then?
grabbing, you know.
What is the acreage then you
The
for Oka
original
Point?
acreage of Ipao Point, or that lot where the old hospital was, is 55 acres. Some of that 55 acres is down on the bottom. Some of that 55 acres was taken for the Healing Heart Center. Some of that 55 acres was taken for the foster home, and some of those acres were taken by the Second Cultura.
Okay, and then how much is left over then? Since you said some of this, some of that, you know, what is left over? Is it 35 acres, as Matrix has indicated? Because
No.
you're saying it was about 55,
No,
and then it sounds
I
like
would
you were
say it's about more closer to 22.
22 acres that are developed, that's able to develop on, correct?
No, 22 acres of property. Some of the 22 acres is below the cliff.
Well, that is just mind-boggling, since, you know, this wasn't brought up. And then all of a sudden now we only have 22
Oh, no, Senator, this has been brought up, you know.
That there's only 22 acres?
There were questions before, you know, it says, well, how come, Mr. Borja, you say 22 acres, sometimes you say 19 acres. There's 22 acres in the parcel. What is usable, in my opinion, is probably 19. Why? Because the corresponding areas around it are cliffline, or even on the bottom on the reef.
So that means it makes it even less. of an acreage to put a shrine like right smack in the middle of the location where the former hospital was at.
No, and that's why we didn't put it right smack in the middle,
So-
is to make the other property left over usable, developable.
Well,
The cliff line is not only where the Naftan site is or the Naftan parcel is. The cliff line is also on the ocean side, over closer towards Perrysville, that area down there.
Can you put up the parking lot map, please? No, it's another one. They know it, the parking lot map. There we go. And can you make it larger, please? Okay, then lift it up. The area that you see at the bottom right is quite substantially large. Why was there no decision to at least put the shrine in this area, since there was quite a bit of land right there that's not being used? I mean, you even have a section for cars and bus parking in the shrine. Why is that land still so empty?
That was a decision made by the architects and the engineers, Senator. It was required by the surveyor reading the law that the parcel be contiguous to the Sagan, Couture, and Chamorro, and that's why that property is.
What year
done
was
in
that?
area. Well, the law was introduced in
2016. So what year was that with the architects and engineers?
I'm not sure. You know, you'd have to talk to the shipper on that. It was probably, I would say, 2019, pre-COVID, probably.
Okay, about 2019, 2020.
Point of information, the map
Pre-COVID.
that we're looking
Yes,
at
point of
says
information.
conceptual design October 2020, architects Liguania LLC.
2020, okay.
Thank you. So around that time, I just don't understand why would we take the whole property area when there was such a large area left over. And of course, the original law said it's supposed to be near Sagan Cantura, right?
Not near, but contiguous.
What?
Contiguous, not near.
Adjacent to then, right?
Contiguous is a better word.
Okay, so why wasn't it closer?
The shrine
Yes,
itself, the
closer
facility?
to, like the whole, I mean, even
You
if
have
you
to
were
a-
reading
you
it.
have to ask the architect, Senator, for that.
And the engineer for this.
And the engineer for that.
Okay. Well, it's obvious that we have a, situation here when regarding the hospital, building a new hospital.
Senator,
And with
there's
the
nothing on
SHPO
the
with
books
here-
for a hospital on that. We did
No,
not consider.
no, there's not, but there is
This bill was
also
passed
Mr.
for the
Borja.
Sagan Coutura way
Mr.
before
Borja,
there was
Mr. Borja, I'm talking right now.
Joe.
If you can just when I ask you a question,
Okay.
so just keep it down and allow me to finish my sentence, Mr. Borja. Like I said, times have changed since 2016, having to put a new hospital up. And this area is one of the places that a new hospital can put up. The infrastructure is there. It's going to be less costly to the people of Guam on the backs of their backs on paying for it, this new hospital up. Things have changed. I mean, considering too the amount, $5 million, where did that come up? Where did that money, that $5 million, come up to? This bill is identical to another bill that was introduced in January for $1.5 million in January, identical, but it never had a public hearing. And now this bill in April had a public hearing for $5 million, but yet there is nothing to justify the $5 million. As said earlier by a minority leader, it was downsized, but yet the cost went up. And we're in a situation right now where we have an opportunity to use Oka Point for a new hospital. And instead, what this bill is doing is justifying buffers that are giving you an additional, 9 acres?
Senator, if I might correct you, it's EPAL Point, not
EPAL.
Oka Point.
Well, EPAL Point. Oka Point, EPAL. I was looking at the matrix, because the matrix was the one that said Oka Point. not EPAL Point. So that's why a lot of us have a lot of questions that are unanswered. And it's unfortunate, I'm sure, if Andy LaGuardia were here today and seeing the issues that are surrounding something he built so wonderfully, so beautifully, that it's becoming politicized. Politicized.
Mr. Chair, on a point
Shame.
of information.
So,
Point of
Mr.
information.
Chair, I know my time is out.
Yes, please. Okay. A point of information, Vice Speaker, so we
Yes,
can
sir.
move on.
On a point of information, sir, the SHPO this morning from the Department of Parks and Recs and Recreation talked about, and also I think DCA had chimed in about the costs. It was originally asked by the architect, Mr. LaGuardia, that this cost may be at $2 million, 2.3 million, somewhere in that case, but because of costs rising, materials rising, time that we're in now since the pandemic, everything has doubled, tripled, and that's why the cost was up at 5. That question was asked earlier, and a response came from the SHPO, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you. Senator Fisher, do you have any
point-
questions?
Point of information, Mr.
You have a
Chair.
point of information?
Right. Without the SHPO here to let us know exactly the cost, Mr. Chair, I mean, I think it's so important that the SHPO be here to answer our
I
questions.
agree with you. I wish he
maybe
was
we
here.
can subpoena him to come in, because that would be very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please turn on your mic if you wanted to comment, Madam Speaker, so I can.
Yes, I'm suggesting we recess until you get him here, Mr. Chair, because I don't know why he's not here.
Okay, so with that, we will recess until tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Thank you, my colleagues. See you at 9 o'clock.